Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations round at Circuit de la Sarthe, driving the Group 1 car. So obviously both races for this week's race were at the same track. One was Group 3, that was a manufacturer. This is the Nations. This was the first race of the day. We did try and do all the races in this, but we got disconnected before the second race, so we couldn't do that. And then the third race was just a little bit boring, if I'm honest. It wasn't as entertaining to be in. So I decided to upload this race. The third race was slightly less points, but it didn't matter anyway because both the races were not enough points to improve my overall score. So I thought I'd upload the more entertaining race with quite a little controversial situation in the race. It was more to do with when we streamed this live, a lot of people in the chat were saying that I was at fault. A lot of people were saying I wasn't. So I wanted to clear this up with the replay footage which we've gone through in this race. It was a little incident between myself and Calster on lap 3, and I think this is going to clear it up and kind of prove something that I was saying during the stream, but we'll show that when we get to it. Anyway, you can see we didn't really hit an amazing lapping. It wasn't a terrible lap, you can see, a 19.8. It wasn't the worst by any means. It was just that, quite surprisingly, that it was very close considering this is a long track. The top 13 or so, or top 12 were in 1 second of each other in qualifying. For a track over 3 minutes long, that is quite a close range of time, especially when slipstream comes into play. Unfortunately, we didn't get a massive slipstream. We got a slight little boost off of Calster at one point of the track, but that was because we actually got back into his slipstream, but then we lost it again, and it didn't really help me out too much. It was basically a solid lap, but again, I didn't really expect too much from this track, purely because it's, like I say, in the manufacturer's race. It's not my favourite track. It doesn't really tend to give me the best results, but starting from P11, we've got the opportunity to maybe make up a few places. You know, people getting penalties. We know how bad this track is for picking up very easy penalties. I mean, just running an inch wide on some of the corners can instantly give you a half second to a second worth of penalty. So we're just going to try and keep it as solid as possible, make progress. You can see we're running the Batman livery. Not many people picked the livery for this car. One of the reasons was because there was basically no good ones to pick. I went through there, had a quick look, and couldn't find any that I liked, so just went with something that I spotted and thought I'm just going to go with this because I knew everyone else would be racing the same livery. If you look on the top right hand corner, not much variety in the way the cars look, so at least my car looks different, and you know, it might not be to everyone's taste, but I just thought I'd pick it just for the fun of it for the stream. As straight away you can see in front of us, look at that, instantly 2 cars picking up a penalty for such minor track limit infringements. It was hardly noticeable, and this again highlights a little thing that I would love Polyphony to do. I believe we should have a strike system, just a free strike system for very minor cuts like that. If you're going to do a big cut, obviously, that would gain you a second to 2 seconds, then yeah, instant penalty needs to be implicated for them drivers. But for minor cuts like what we just saw there, and for the little ones that you see in this track where you run an inch wide and you can pick up half a second, I think we need a free strike system. So what I mean by that is a little free squares at the top with X's in them, and every time you get a minor one, it builds up to X. Once you get to 3, then you have an automatic, say, 2-second penalty. So it just gives you a little bit of leeway in picking up the odd 1 or 2 that don't really gain you any time. As you see, now we're picking up a slipstream, and another car has actually picked up a slipstream already. We're going to go down the left-hand side here now and try and get past both of them cars and see, but we're on the inside now. It's going to be really hard to break into this corner. One of the cars, Oscar Eng, manages to get back past me there, but we make up one place. But we've got Rick up front, Rick BMX, I think that is, who's changed his name since then, who has got 1 second penalty. Looks like he's just picked up another penalty there on the chicane by running fractionally. I couldn't even see where he ran wide, to be honest, but again, give him another penalty as we try and go around the outside of Eng now. It's then when we get very close to go around, but then a car dives up on our inside. You see there on the right hand side, I have to go very wide through that corner and try and get on the power nicely, and he actually did that quite nicely. It was RC3, braked a little bit late, but I managed to hold quite a nice line around the outside and get back on the power and pick up that slipstream from the Oscara driver in front of me. But now we're going to go for this move now, try and get past Oscara driver before we get through to the really fast right hand corner, because we've got the car in front. P8 is going to have a penalty, you're going to see there, so we should be able to get ourselves into P8 on lap 1. So not a bad start to race, quite an entertaining start. I actually really enjoyed this race. It was quite fun to be in. I did like this car, although I would have preferred this race to have been limited to certain cars, much like they did with the race A while ago, where they just front wheel drive cars. It would have been nice if they would have just picked the more modern LMP1 cars for this race and made it a bit more realistic, because you ain't going to see these cars in the 24-hour Le Mans anytime soon. So maybe they could do that in the future. It would be a nice idea to see one car running very wide there. Just look at that, scraping the wall cars with the sparks flying up as they go through them extremely fast corners. But we're managing to hold on to this position. You see there's a bit of a gap developed there between myself, the car behind, and then another group of cars with 3 or 4 or 5 cars involved in that battle. So we need to make sure we don't pick up any penalties at this point in the race, because if we get anything substantial, we're going to be dropping back 5 to 6 positions instantly. So very important to try and keep the car on the track in the limits and not make many mistakes. Try and keep it as limited to the mistakes as possible as we now start lap 2. Obviously quite a long lap at Circuit de la Sarre, so now starting lap 2, trying to go into the braking zone, brake nice and early for this corner. I do like to brake a bit early to try and get that left hand tyre to hook up the apex nicely. You can cut just a bit with your left hand tyre, as long as you don't get all 4 wheels over the white line, you should be okay. But even then, it can be so fraction whether you're literally on the white line, and it can sometimes give you a penalty, which is a little bit too harsh. I think it kind of ruins the racing a bit. I think my idea of the free strike system would really work in favour of the racing, and it would just allow people just to have a little bit more tiniest mistake. Sometimes you make a mistake where you run wide and you don't gain the time, you lose half a second, but the game just sees you as running wide and it will give you a penalty. And that kind of situation really needs fixing, much like how iRacing does it. That's how iRacing does it. You get a strike system, they allow a lot more strikes because they include contact with cars in their system. To be honest, I wish that Polyphony would follow that system as well, and so minor contacts would just build up a strike system, and depending on the length of the race, it could change the amount of strikes that you're allowed before you get disqualified from the race. I think that would sooner eradicate some of the dodgy driving we see with people blocking people and stuff, and also the bump drafting. Some people complain about bump drafting, but at the moment in this game a lot of people are doing it. It'd also eradicate that, so I think it could work, and whether they'll ever introduce something like that, who knows. As we now go through the straights, you see through the chicane there, trying to make sure that we get a good solid exit, as the Ascari driver behind is still in the slipstream, not able to get past us at this stage. I was quite surprised that even though he's in the slipstream, he's not. This car didn't seem to pick up a massive slipstream. It was really strange. I expected it to, once in the slipstream, to fly past me, but you can see again, it's just not really gaining too much in the slipstream, which was quite surprising for a Group 1 car at this track with the straight, the long straights. It does gain a bit, but it's nowhere near the strength that the Group 3 cars pick up the slipstream, which is a bit weird, because I think in real life these cars would probably pick up more of a slipstream than the Group 3 cars, as again he's not able to go for a move on that straight into the braking zone of the really fast right hand corner. But again, we're going through with a purple sector. Obviously lap 2 everyone's going to be purple, because lap 1 was sort of a slow lap from the start of the lap. And as we now go through the penalty zone, I don't know if any of them drivers behind. Let's have a little look. It looks like one driver might have picked up a penalty in the distance there, I'm not too sure. As we now try and stay ahead of the Ascari driver. I was quite surprised actually that I was able to stay ahead of the Ascari driver behind me. I think on the time trial he was quite high up there, but I didn't push my time trial too aggressively, and we really nailed these corners this time, getting the apexes spot on, trying to make sure that we stay very tight to this right hand corner. It's really important then to chuck it into this left hand corner. You can actually cut a bit of the curb. I like what they've done to the track limits for that section now, because I remember once we picked up a 28-second penalty for running about half a foot over on the inside curb, and it was quite comical obviously, because a 28-second penalty for something like that. Hopefully they've eradicated that now, because I did notice that you can actually take the inside line a lot better through that corner now. As long as you don't run wide, you don't pick up the penalty, which never used to be the case. As we now start lap 3 and still in P8, so far quite a solid race. We're not too far behind that battle up at front. You can see the battle between, I think it's P5, 6 and 7. Quite surprising. Obviously I'm not in the slipstream, so they're obviously slipstreaming each other and gaining the advantage. I think obviously P4 is also in that battle just up ahead, so it's fairly close racing so far. It was just a shame that we couldn't have picked up the slipstream of any of them cars, or had another car in front of us to work together with as we go down the straights to try and get a little bit closer to that battle in front of me. But what you can see at the moment is we've got quite a long line of cars behind us. As we look on the top right hand corner, you can see there's a group of cars separated by about 7-8 tenths, and then another 7 tenths, 6 tenths, etc. So there's 4 or 5 cars very close behind us, so we've got to keep on this and make sure we don't make any big mistakes. Obviously, as we're trying to keep it as smooth as possible, as you see, managing to get that gap fairly close to breaking the slipstream to the Oscara driver behind me. However, he's just about getting back into it as we get on the power there. We didn't quite hook that corner up, and he's going to start building up the speed as we go down the straight now into the next chicane. You can see he's just gaining and gaining and gaining. It's about 5 tenths, and then it's just going to gradually increase to 4 tenths. Decrease to 4 tenths. So he's managed to get himself back in the slipstream as we go into the braking zone, trying to get the braking as late as possible, taking it tight to the apex. We run a little bit wide there, had to hesitate on the power, but managed to get it back online for the apex of the curb. So didn't regain any time in the lose, but we picked up a penalty, as you can see there, which was a bit frustrating. We probably lost I think we might have lost time over gain time there, and that is a perfect example of the kind of penalty that I think would be really beneficial from a free strike system, because to get half a second for that, which gained me no time, as you can tell by the Oscara driver behind me that is right behind me still, it seems quite strange to get that penalty, which is going to probably lose me about a second. In reality, we're about half a second ahead of Oscara driver. We're then probably going to be about half a second behind them by the time we take the penalty. However, the one advantage we've got is we've picked it up on the better place to get a penalty. Now, the reason is because you're going at a slower pace as you come into the penalty zone, as we go through these really fast corners, very aggressive through there, trying to get on the brakes early just so I can get on the power early coming out of that corner. And this is where the penalty zone is, and you'll see now, because we go into this corner with less speed, you're going to lose a little bit less speed, so it doesn't actually affect you too much. You see, it takes a half second, it's gone, and what we're able to do now is get back into Oscara slipstream. So we tuck back into that. We've got Kalsa coming up behind. He's picking up my slipstream, I'm picking up the slipstream with the Oscara driver, so Kalsa's going to go over to the left hand side and try and hang it around the outside. Now this comes through the incident that we're talking about. I just hold the normal racing line through there. Kalsa runs wide. We didn't know what happened at that point. It looked like he just went wide on his own accord, but we're going to have a little look at exactly what happened there. So some people accuse me of causing this incident, and I couldn't believe it when we were on the screen, to be really honest. I was quite amused by it, because look at this. Going into the corner, I give him plenty of space. Now Kalsa just at that point is a little bit too far over on the left hand side, and he just makes a mistake all by himself. He just bins it, and I got accused of that being my fault, which I found a little bit strange during the stream. The majority of people were defending myself, saying there was nothing that we did wrong. But we'll just have a little look at Kalsa's view of this incident. You see, I'm picking up the slipstream of the car in front. He's got my slipstream, he goes to the left hand side, but at the point of the apex, he's not even half a car length in the lead, and he just makes a mistake all by himself. And what I'm going to show you now is why that mistake happened. Have a little look at this. As he goes down the straight, you're going to see from the replay camera, he picks up so much dust on his tyres. Just look at the dust kicking up. He's got dirt all over his tyres, and he stays on that wide line, which is always going to kick the car wide. And as he chucks it in, the rear does not want to live with it. You'll see it now. The rear just gives up. It starts to lose traction there. He tries to save it. And again, you'll see all through the corner, he's just losing control of the car. And that is just basically a mistake by Kalsa, in my personal opinion. I think he shouldn't have really gone for that move on the outside. That's just my view of it. But I'm sure he'll learn from that and won't do that again anyway. But I think it just shows you that the replay does show that there was not much I could do in that situation. I just held the tight line and kept the position. But anyway, getting back on with the race, you can see that in the end it was Kalsa that lost out quite badly in that incident, to be fair. Dropped himself down by quite a few seconds, maybe lost 2, 3, maybe more seconds. We're very close to Oscara now. You can see, even with that penalty, we had to go a little bit defensive on that line into the corner. Obviously, lost a bit of time, but we're just outside that vital slipstream range to the Oscara driver. So we need to try and get back into the slipstream and see if we can just drag ourselves forward on the straight if possible whenever we get back into it. But you can see that the Oscara driver is pushing very aggressively through here, and he's actually built up a bit of lead. And what I did notice was, I think if you look at our brake bias, we did have it on -3, the same as what we did in qualifying. I felt like that was the good setting for qualifying. However, I think in the race I probably should have went down to -1 to maybe 0, just to try and keep that front end a little bit stronger for the corner sections. And it was good for getting back on the traction. So for the slower corners, the brake bias was really good. It kept the rears quite alive and enabled quite a lot of traction. But for some of the faster corners in the chicanes, for example, I wasn't getting the bite in on the front end that I would have liked compared to, I think if I would have gone to -1, as we see, trying to stay with him. You can see gaining a little bit of time there, nearly running wide there, but just about keeping it on the track, and still in P8, so not a bad result so far for this race. You know, if we can maintain P8, I was going to be reasonably happy, if I'm being honest, at this track, which isn't particularly strong for myself. Obviously, this is a top split lobby with some very fast drivers in it, so to get a P8 at a track that you're not particularly good at is normally a reasonable result as we get into the braking zone. You can see that the driver in front of us, number 4 I call him, has actually picked up a penalty somewhere or made a mistake or something, and has dropped right back. Now, he's one of the fastest on this track in the time trial. I think he had the rank 1 in the world in time trial, so very fast driver, but seems to be having a bit of trouble at this round in terms of not getting penalties. Maybe he's pushing the boundaries just a little bit too much, but he's got the slipstream of the Ascara driver in front of me. I just so close. I'm trying to brake extremely late just to pick up. You can see there 8 attempts we got to, but I just couldn't pick up the slipstream. If we could have just got in that slipstream, could have helped me drag. He could have dragged me forward all the way down this straight and got me a little bit closer to that P6 position, but maybe have been able to contend for a top 5 if you don't know what would have happened further up. But at this point, we're not in that slipstream, so we're going to lose a bit of time all the way down the straight. You can see losing time to number 4. Into the braking again, trying to brake nice and early, so we hit that apex nicely to get on the power really aggressively and early. We actually gained quite a bit of time on the drivers there in front of us, and so close again through the corners. We're actually picking up time and getting extremely close and picking up. But again, you can see just that vital few attempts away from the slipstream. You can see it's tantalisingly close. I was trying to push aggressively through there to see if I could get involved with that battle up front, because you know, you don't know if people are going to pick up penalties, but at this stage I felt like it was, if I could have got in the slipstream, we might be able to fight for the P6 position in this race. And you can see though, Ascara is somehow, I don't know where he's picked up that penalty through that section of track, because I've never picked up one on that part. It's a strange place to pick it up. Maybe he ran wide or hit the wall, I don't know. Possibly he hit the wall. You can't pick it up for hitting the wall, but where he gets that penalty and has to take it, he actually gets away with not losing too much time. You could see there it kicks in just before the braking, so the half a second penalty wasn't that bad, but then he picks up another penalty straight away from the chicane, and that is going to probably give me that position. You can see he's going to go he's got the slipstream of number 4 though, so he's going to be able to pull away on the acceleration and on any straight section, but I think that that's not going to be enough as we get through to the next penalty zone. Although now we've got Rick right behind us there, who picked up the penalty just, I think it was on the early lap. He only picked up a small penalty, but he's now right in my slipstream, and he's going to be pushing very aggressively. Obviously a very fast driver as we go through the long right hand corner, the fast right hand corner, trying to get a solid exit as possible so that we don't lose as much time to these drivers in front as possible. So if when he takes that penalty, I've got the chance to just breeze past him, hopefully. It all depends how much of a penalty he's got. At this stage I couldn't quite see. I think it was around 1 second, maybe even more. I'm not 100% sure as we go into the braking zone. You see the yellow bar filling up, that's letting you know that he's about to take that penalty and go through the penalty zone on this final lap. But if we can get into P7, that'll be a great position to be in, and will we be able to hold off Rick behind us? So as you see, takes a penalty, we pick up a little bit of slipstream, go over to the left hand side, and we're just going to breeze past that car and then straight back over to the right hand side, because I could see that Rick was coming up behind him, so he'd have to stay defensive. So that keeps myself in P7 and the Ascara driver not being able to pick up my slipstream as we go into the braking for the chicane, trying to get down through the gears as aggressively as possible with this car. It really does like being shifted very fast, this car. Just about keeping it within the white line there again, close to getting that half second penalty that we got before, but just about keeping it. But now Rick is right in our slipstream, 3 attempts behind me, and this is going to be very hard to defend against, because if he gets a good solid exit from the slow right hand corner up ahead, he's going to get such a strong draft down the straight and probably be able to get past me as we try and do it really nicely, trying to get the power as aggressively as possible. And I actually hooked that up really nicely. I actually got a better exit than Rick. However, he's now going to get that slipstream all the way down the straight. I'm going to stay to the right hand side. I'm going to try and defend it, but it's going to be extremely difficult, because he's going to, as soon as he gets to within 2 attempts, he's going to pick up the stronger slipstream and just breeze past as we stay to the right hand side. You can see the extra speed that he's got going into this corner, very hard corner to go side by side. I try and hang it in on the inside, braked a little bit early just to give him a bit of space, and a very nice move by Rick there to put himself up into P7. Not really much I could do in terms of defending it, the slipstream, but now we've got to try and see if I can hold on to P8. Luckily I've got the slipstream of Rick in front of me to defend against the Oscara driver who's behind me, so he's not going to be able to just blast past me because I'm going to have the same slipstream from Rick that he's got. But you can see we're not going to be close enough to try and get that P7 position. We're going to pick the slipstream up, but it's not we're not in any position to make a move into this corner. And obviously now we get a little bit of dirty air, and that's going to affect us through these really fast flowing corners. You can see there Rick just pulling out, simply nearly losing control of the car. The car went all sideways on the rear there. I think it's more the way the car handles that actually looked worse than it was. But now we're going to go into the final few sections there. It looked like the Oscara driver was going to go for a move down the left, and I was like, no, you can't go for that move, that's too risky. And I think he decides not to even try that and just settles for the P9, and I just go over the line. Quite happy with that, a P8 position. I think we picked up okay-ish points, but like I say, it didn't really matter because we needed to get 2.5Ks to 2.4K points I needed to get to improve any of my my overall points in the Nations Championship so far. So a solid race, enjoyable, some good racing in there. The little incident with Calster, I think I was correct when we were live to say that there was really not much I could do. I just held the inside line. He ran wide and made a mistake pretty much all by himself. So a little bit of justification for why I backed myself up on the stream, but you can see there we only picked up 1800 points, so not really amazing, pretty weak points. But like I say, it was a solid race, enjoyable. I really enjoyed that race. It was a really fun race to be involved with, and I hope we have more races like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. I appreciate everyone that clicks the thumbs up button for these videos. And also click that notification button if you haven't already subscribed so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.